Ernest Hemingway had this quote where he said, I had this big line, but what I took away from that was this definition of grace under pressure being defined as courage. Our next speaker, Abbas Arslan, epitomizes grace. Over the last 4 years, he has gracefully but insistently made us a better, bigger, more complex company. Small company founders aren't supposed to have client favorites, but if that were the case, Abbas would be a very strong contender for that. He is here to talk about an interesting journey that we've been on together for the last 18 months in building a product called Predictive AI. I'd love for you to spend some time. Abbas Arslan, please come on stage and talk about predicting the future of Coca-Cola. Oh, you got that.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I see that the seats have been sponsored by Coca-Cola. I didn't know that. So thank you very much for giving me this time, and thank you for Quilt to also having me here. I want to speak basically about something which was very close to my heart initially, which was the wastage of human labor and human effort. Some of you, or many of you, may have been involved in creative pursuits. It could be journalism, it could be making movies, songs, it could be just making ads like some of us do, like me. And you do realize that good about 90% of these creative pursuits are actually, they fail. Only 1 out of 10 companies that start, they become a success. Good about 95% of the ads people don't remember, let alone lead those ads to make the purchase, and so on and so forth. So the question that we always had in mind was that why do all the good people with all of their best intentions and best of efforts fail so much? And at Coca-Cola Company also, one may think that Coca-Cola Company is this giant who understands human behavior, and also there are some people in the Atlanta headquarters who monitor each and every drink that people drink and each and every thought that people think. It's not the case, and Coca-Cola Company had been failing for a very long time and consistently declining in its revenue and user-based numbers for good about 10 years. So that was where we were, and that's where our new chief marketing officer came in, and he recognized that Coca-Cola Company, which was the biggest brand in the world for good about 16 years consistently, was no longer the best brand or the best company, best marketing company in the world. And that's where we set ourselves this ambition that we want to be the best marketing company in the world, not by a little, by a lot. So inherently, there is this, we accept that we are not the best as such. So what can we do? When we think of this way, then the benchmark has also changed, right? It's no longer the brands that you think are in your competition, or you can cast the net a bit you can cast the net a bit wider to include more food and beverage brands. But it's basically the top 100 brands which are there in the world. And there could be more and upcoming brands as well. Funny anecdote in this one, just last week we were together with some of the CMOs in the community, and a question was asked to the panel, which are your favorite brands? And these CMOs tended to be in their 40s and 50s, named brand like Nike, Netflix, and so on and so forth. The same question was also asked to a panel of teenagers right after that. And the most favorite brand that came out to be was Mr. Beast. And basically, that also shows that the brands that we see right now are also, yes, it is a much wider set than what we used to have, but still the more relevant set is the one that it's not even captured here. And this model needs to be evolved even further. So the task that we had as the insights community on our side was basically that how can we go from more myopic vision of other beverages or other food and beverage brands to the top 100 brands, and how do we assess where do we stand today so that we could come up to be among the top, on the top of all of these brands. And this was a task that was very, very difficult for a human mind to do. And that's where we needed the AI capability. So with the partnership of Quilt AI, we started to develop a model which basically said, let's take advertising from the top 100 brands, see how many of the ads have been put out into the market over the last 5 to 7 years. Let's bring them together in one combined database. We started off with about 100,000 ads, and we kept feeding the database more, went to about 500,000, and that's where the data started to become more meaningful. The data continues to improve, and now I think we're closing in about 1 million ads. For perspective, all the other databases for ad evaluation which are there, they are about 15 to 25,000. So this is comprehensively perhaps the largest database of ads which is out there. Now, why is this important? It is important because if you have about, let's say, 10,000 content pieces which are trying to sell you something being generated every day, anything which is 15,000 itself, and many of them are dated from many years ago, is basically irrelevant. You have huge blind spots. You have actually more blind spots than what you can see. And therefore, you'll always be perhaps designed to fail. And that leads me to my earlier point of there is a 90% failure rate, which I think many of us have also gone through in our life experiences. And that, I think, needs to change. So having a wider database, a more comprehensive database, allows you to have less blind spots to see more. And therefore, you should be able to benchmark yourself. But having that alone is not enough. It needs to be trained in a particular way so that it can be helpful. So there is a base of general AI consciousness which is being used today by OpenAI, by Google, and all the other mega AI engines which we all use as general consumers. But they're not good enough, they're not sharp enough for you to develop a particular set of expertise on top of it. And that's where we added 2 more layers. The first one is to train that general consciousness on the cultural data. So what does, for example, holiday look like in US? If you think of this, you'll think of Christmas, you'll think of Thanksgiving, and so on. But in China, that may look very different. In Saudi Arabia, that may look very different. And that perception of, let's say, holiday needs to be integrated. If you think of, again, we just talked about different audiences. If you think of a 50-plus person in terms of age, their perception about the world, what's cool, is different versus, say, if you talk to a 15-year-old. And again, these demographics need to be integrated as well. So training on the cultural data becomes an important layer for you to understand culture and be a part of it. And then definitely training on ads themselves, which becomes the data set for you to compare yourself against, needs to be there. And this has changed the way we approach advertising and marketing quite a bit. So we used to have human-based consumer testing only, which allowed us an emotional understanding and also to see which ads will drive purchase. On the AI-based, we are still continuing to have those for sure, but there is a difference in how humans and AI engines work, which is also important to understand. With humans, we are still able to get something different, which we still can get only from humans, which is to get at a much, much deeper level, to keep on asking why, and to get something which is much, much deeper from them. But AI has something which is different to offer. Because what happens with AI is that it can give you answers for what you did not ask it to. I'll give you a quick example. We were launching a Coca-Cola new variant called Starlight. We asked humans, would it make Coca-Cola cooler? And people said yes. To AI, we asked, what would you think this will do for the brand Coca-Cola? And it said it would make people think that Coca-Cola is more of a brand for exploration of their selves. We never asked people about exploration, so people never answered that. But with AI, because it takes the stimulus and gives you an answer what it thinks is right, and hence going back to the point, with AI you get less blind spots and you get more light into your life and your work. Another important benefit out of this is that you're able to reduce the time and cost quite significantly. It is very, very important for 2 reasons. Because now you can test your ideas much earlier in the pipeline. And then you can test them more frequently. So for example, let's say one of you wants to start a beverage brand today. And you go out and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take milk and juice and add caffeine into it, 0 sugar. Bad idea, I know. I will perhaps do something like that. A bad idea. But how do you know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea? With AI, now you can just write that on a piece of paper and quickly run it through this and see whether it is a good or a bad idea. And you'll also be able to get 5 ideas on how it can be better. And it's not just ChatGPT who is letting you know based on its 2021 data, and also not which is developed like for this purpose. You will get an expert based on training of 1 million ads coming from top 100 brands to see whether your idea is really worth it or not. And once you have tested it early on, you'll keep on improving the idea and keep on testing it 3 or 4 times before you actually come to the market. And hence, hopefully you will have a much higher success rate and not be among those 90% who fail, but hopefully those 10% who were successful are now 25 or 30%, and hopefully you're standing one of them. So this is my last slide, and then I will stop to take some questions. Another important thing in this one is that most of the ad testings, and therefore I think any other pursuits which are creative in nature, tended to be focused only on the final version. So a finally produced ad looks much more engaging than just a few visuals which are hand sketched. But AI is blind to the level of execution, because AI basically takes every picture separately and every word separately and combines them. So when you test an idea at a very early stage, which is just a sketchboard, it works as well as a finally produced idea. And hence, you have the ability to test early on and then keep on evolving and for a higher success rate as you go forward. So let me pause here. We have still a couple of more minutes. Would love to take any questions if there are any. Spider.
Thank you. Quick question, just I guess regarding how new ideas can be generated with this technology. You're talking about oftentimes you end up getting answers for things you wouldn't normally think to ask questions directly for. And I think this is something we've seen throughout the years. We never thought to ask people for X because we never thought they'd have an answer on it, but it turns that's what they really want. And are you finding at Coca-Cola that there's an opportunity for you to be able to dig into the data and find things that people have never asked for, but yet they really want?
I don't have a live example for this. I haven't come through something like that myself, but I think definitely the data is designed in a way that if you just ask, you have to ask a prompt for sure, but if you were to ask, if you were to cast the net a bit wider and just say, what are the 5 trends which you did not see last Christmas, but what you're seeing now, you can be surprised with what it can come up with. The data is there, I think it just needs that prompt. I have 2 questions, 3 questions on that side.
So thank you for this. This is a really fascinating talk. The slide that got me was the one where you're comparing traditional market research to AI. Do you have any results to date of a campaign that you built strictly from AI market research versus traditional market research, and how did it compare?
Yeah, we have now, I think, 3, 4 examples. Generally, the success rate is higher. One of the recent ones is an ad called Coca-Cola Masterpiece. I would request you can Google it and you can see that. It was actually interestingly canned. The idea had come up a couple of years ago and we had not produced it. It was shelved, and after running through AI-based research and a few optimization, it was produced, and I think it's one of the most successful in the last 5 years.
Hello. I wanted to ask you that the data you mentioned, is it just like, how do you decide on just 1 million data points that the ad you are going to run is going to be good or bad?
Right. I think a couple of points there. Firstly, earlier we were making the decision either on no data point, gut feel of a few experienced people in the room, or based on 15 to 25,000 data points. Now we are at 1 million. Is 1 million good enough? It's much better than what we used to, but it can go up to 10 million also. We have the capability. Still, I think, as we are seeing already, our success rate is becoming much, much higher than before. The key, I think, there is not just the number of data points, is the ability to test earlier and keep on testing as you go. One question over there, and let me know whenever we are on time, please.
Yeah, great. I was really good talk. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the organizational challenges you faced introducing an AI-based tool, and whether you see a world where AI-based tools will be the sole tool that you use to create and test.
Great question. Adoption initially has been a challenge, and still there continue to be two schools of thought in the organization. I think though the adoption on AI has been much faster than what it was in some of the other technologies. I guess one of the big benefits that AI or such tools have gotten is because of the open AI and the wave that it has been able to create. And that's why adoption of AI, particularly this, was much higher and faster. We are right now using both AI and human-based testing in parallel. And as I was identifying also, that there's a reason of human-based testing also which will perhaps continue to exist. That's okay? All right, thank you.
We're going to take maybe one online question. Abbas, please.
Coca-Cola is known for its iconic advertising campaigns. How do you balance the need to maintain the brand's heritage while staying relevant in an ever-evolving market?
Right, so yes, Coca-Cola is a 140-year-old brand, and interestingly, it's one of those things in which Coca-Cola itself has a way of reinventing itself. And going back to actually one of the heritage ads from 1970s, even 1940s at times, to repurpose them for the present day. One way that we continue to do this is to keep the brand messaging the same. So it continues to be about family togetherness, friends being together, an uplifting break. So all those things remain at the core. But looking at the trends and how it's evolving from a cultural perspective to be in line with that. Of late, in the last 3 to 4 years, specifically, there has been a lot of focus on representation that Coca-Cola has always led the way in, and continue to do so because that's one of the brand core values. So we continue to champion that, for example. Also, I think another key part here is, again, adoption of technology. So how can we use technologies like AI to inherently refresh the brand for the current generation? Is also something that we are using in the back end like this, but also Coca-Cola is the forerunner also in the generative AI space. We were actually the first brand to launch a major campaign which was primarily based on generative AI called Create Real Magic Now. So keeping core of the brand the same, but refreshing it based on the new trends and technology all the time is perhaps the answer.
Abbas, thank you.
Thank you so much.